Hey everybody, welcome back. If you are watching this show, you can probably imagine a number of directions that this might go in. Today is October the 7th, Friday, October the 7th, and I wanted to record this even though I said I was basically not going to record anything, or at least go out of my way to do so, specifically for this channel between now and the end of the year. Part of that is, or going forward I should say, part of that is because I was anticipating that I needed to give up something in order to receive something. If you've been following this channel for any amount of time, you might know that I've had difficulties communicating with my very own father. So basically, flesh and blood, family, so to speak. With this in mind, the communication difficulties had come to a point where I had not talked with him since the beginning of this year itself. We're now in October, which has been about 9 months worth of time since I talked with my father. And part of the reason was because we had a number of lack of participants in the family who, I wanted to say a number of participants, but it was lack of participation. We had a number of family members who didn't want to participate in helping to bridge the conversation beyond where it would have gone. So I held out for every amount of conversation that I could have possibly had, with the intent of only talking with the person with whom I thought I should be able to communicate. Now, I already recognize that there are certain patterns where we can test the spirits so that we can know what we are talking with, what we are dealing with. And in this particular case, today itself, I contacted my father because I saw that 2 days ago he left a message on my phone. That was on Wednesday. Today is Friday when I saw that he had left a message on my phone. I saw that very early this morning. I communicated that out across several channels to just a few people who I thought might be able to understand that this was a part of a journey that they're also participating in. And after that point in time, as the day broke, I decided to, it was a reasonable hour to call my father, so I called my dad. And I don't even know that I can use both words, father and dad, for this individual, because there wasn't a whole lot of active parenting that I'm aware of, except for to show me how to become extremely rigid and tough in the face of adversity. Because that's oftentimes what he dealt to me, was adversity. In this particular case, when this person talked with me, they sounded pleasant enough. They had plans for the day, and I don't wish any ill to happen to any of those plans. And at the same time, when they started to have this conversation with me, there were little indicators where this person was trying to call me out as the person that was unable to communicate. My dad even said, the reason, he said, when you stopped talking with me, he told me that, because we haven't talked for a while, he told me that I was the one who stopped talking with him. He said, when you stopped talking with me, and I immediately stopped him and said, what are you talking about? I didn't ever stop talking with you. Not only have I been leaving video recordings that say what I would have wanted to say with you, but I also sent you letters, handwritten letters. I also sent text messages to your family. I also tried to communicate with your family in person. And I've also included people who are not even a part of your realm into the conversation. And all along the while, the only reason I believe we're not having an effective conversation is because the information has been misrepresented, just like in that instance where my father said that I stopped talking with him. I have not stopped talking with my father. In fact, when I saw that he left a message, I actively made plans to make sure to call my father in return. All I am doing with most of these conversations out there is returning the obligation. If somebody contacts me, I'm going to contact them. Now, today's conversation started out with little indicators saying to me that my dad was still placing responsibility and shifting the blame of this failure to communicate onto his own son, onto his child, onto his flesh and blood. Now, again, I mentioned to a few people that I was going to have a conversation with this person. This is kind of the follow-up. And it's kind of the follow-up because some of the people with whom I communicated this information to have kind of forgotten what it might be like to encounter a situation where you need to get somebody else involved, where there's an emergency, where maybe there's a war brewing, where maybe there's a fight that's about to happen. We might forget how it is to participate in order to mitigate some of the circumstances that are about to happen, about to transpire, whether it's in the form of music or berating. Some of the things that happen can be seen as berating when in fact it's just stern refusal to accept something that is untrue. If you're going to say something that's untrue about me, I'm going to have to reflect something back at you so that you can see what the truth truly is. So today, on this channel, I had already scheduled something else to be loaded, but I decided to share a song called Have You Decided? Don't worry, you're watching this and I'm holding a guitar, partly so that you can think that I'm playing music or I'm going to play music, and you can either already have checked yourself out of the conversation, or you can just watch, admire the conversation for what it is, enjoy whatever scenery is around me, whatever's happening, and understand once and again that all I'm trying to do is show a plan of what it took to get to where I'm going, which we might not be going to the same places. All of us might have different interests, but all along the way, I hope that if you're watching this, you recognize that I hold your interests extremely valuable. If my father told me he was going to go to an event today with somebody else in the family, I really hope that they arrive, that they enjoy their destination, enjoy the conversations that transpire, make it back safely, and are able to enjoy time with their loved ones. That's what they're doing. That's what we're doing, is we're spending time, going out of our way to spend time with one another, is we're spending time with those who we love and or admire because they are doing something for us. If we're spending all the time going to these healthcare facilities, we might have more love for them than we have for our own relatives, who also can help us to become healthier, better versions of ourselves. Now, there are many smart cats on this platform. One such person talked to me about the 7-Day Vegan Challenge. He talked to me in this same way. He talked to the millions of people that listen to him. And I got out of it, hey, if I eat differently, I can expect different results. If the energy that is taken in is different, if it's not just junk and processed, then what I can produce won't be as much junk or as processed. It'll be more natural, more of a high vibration, a higher vibration. And those types of things don't seem to mix well when somebody is constantly in a lower vibration frequency. If someone's in a lower vibration frequency and you raise your vibration frequency, you're not going to resonate the same way. The sounds that happen at the same time might not make the exact same sense. So if I'm carrying any anxiety from having a conversation or attempting to have a conversation, the first thing that it is my responsibility to do is to notice that anxiety and find a constructive way to share that with maybe just myself on this channel. I might be the only person watching my own video and clicking on the like button. That might be why so many videos just have one like. However, I can also tell that there are more than one person who are watching these videos because the uptick of the viewership is pretty apparent. Now, if you've chosen to not click on like or to not subscribe or to not click on the comments to actually have a conversation in public, you might also have chosen to simply reach out and try to contact me in private. I can tell you one thing about every dynamic relationship, and that is that only certain things can be expected when you have private relationships with someone else, where they can only be behind closed doors with that other person. If you can't stand to be with that other person and another person for an extended period of time, there might be something about a character of somebody that makes you uncomfortable. If you have dis-ease or discomfort in the circumstances you're in, imagine if you were in another country being drafted into a war that you did not believe, that you didn't believe in. Imagine if you were in another country where all of your belongings were being laid to waste by some other entity that was about to take over that location. Imagine that this country itself has had the same exact turmoil happen in the past, where much of even our resources, including physical labor, were taken from some other place. Imagine that all this is true and all of the people in power are still, at least to a part, orchestrating some of the same servitude that we've been used to for all of these decades. And then imagine that simply calling this information as possibly true causes certain circumstances, such as your own family, to become hostile towards you. And then imagine trying to take on the added pleasure of observing wildlife around you as it's decimated in the places that you know it should be flourishing, and then trying to relay that message. So I wanted to take a break on this channel because, well, you can't have everything, right? So what I've been doing is enjoying my time. You can tell I'm getting fit. You can tell that I'm energetic. You can tell that I have a spark of energy. And some people will not like that. So for that reason, I've decided to kind of go silent. Some smart cats up the road talk about going silent. Some other people talk about how people are staying hidden. Some other people talk about all these different things. But the one thing that I heard from my dad in his time of need, when he asked for his own direct relative to do something, he asked for this person to use their voice. And in a way they did. For a brief moment in time, they prayed a prayer of peace with me, which helped my dad to stay in the car, basically. I literally was driving down the road with my dad when he tried to jump out of the moving vehicle so that he could run across a freeway where the speed limit was 80 miles an hour. And he wanted to do that. And I tried everything I could try to get the authorities, the leaders, my family to hear what I was saying. And none of them heard it. Like almost as if I was being stonewalled. I've used that word a few times in some of the past videos. Check back on those prior videos and see if you really heard what was said. If you didn't hear what was said, listen to the video again. Understand, my purpose is not to make you comfortable. I'm only here to help you to succeed. And in so doing, what I'm trying to do is show a path of success. And so right now, what I'm doing on this Friday, October the 7th, is I'm recording an update because an update occurred, a small miracle, where basically I was able to talk with my father for a brief amount of time. And the only reason we didn't talk much more is because for some reason, he can't hear the full truth. And just to kind of put it all into perspective, I was telling my dad that I believed a lot of the information he told me at a certain point, or at least I started to, and I started to give him an example about one of the drug-induced thoughts that he had was that something was occurring because of how I felt about this world. And I said, I even started to believe those things you said, Dad. And he said, I never said that. To which I was thinking in my mind, if you've used methamphetamines, you might not remember all of the things that you said or didn't say. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% right myself. However, I went ahead and said, okay, well, let's say you didn't say that. I thought you said, and the whole reason of me saying this was so that I could say, I even started to believe you were saying this. This is why. That's how a normal conversation would be allowed to flow. But immediately, my dad said, I never said that. And so we came to a point where I asked him about something else. I said, okay, well, did you say this? Did you say some people could see through your eyes? I never said that. I said, well, why were there mattresses against your window before you were going off to the place that you wanted to get rehabilitated at? I didn't say that. And I said, okay, we're talking about a whole other subject now. Part of the problem we can't have a full conversation is usually due to the participant who is not listening. And as soon as I said that, he started to listen. And I asked him, did you ever have mattresses on your window and claim that people could see through your eyes? He paused, he didn't answer, which was at least an indicator of acknowledgement. And so at that point in time, I said, in that same manner that some of that happened, I thought you might have said this, and the reason, and he said, he went straight back to, I never said that. So the only thing left for me to do was to discontinue the conversation. I thanked my father for telling me his plans that he called me about, and his plans are just so happen to be in alignment with some of my past, where he asked me for help without asking me. He told me, I want to do this. I want to move to this other location. And I need one of these, X, Y, or Z. He was basically calling me to ask me for help, keeping an eye out for X, Y, or Z so that he could complete his plans. All the while never hearing anything that I said, because he never said that. This conversation that I'm putting right here, right now, may or may not be intended for you, but it is 100% intentional that you're watching this. And so you must have reason to be watching this right now. Either to pray for, to click on the description of, or to be prayed for. And those are the only reasons that we are together right here on this channel. Plus you might like music. Plus you might like to see a good success story. Plus you might like to see a good weight loss story. Plus you might like to see a good, how did this person overcome that story? Plus you might like the things that I like. Cars, guitars, wildlife, nature, Big Bend. There are certain things that drew us together. If it was simply because we are in a lineage together, that doesn't 100% mean that we're family together. I can assure you of that. By blood, we might be genetically related. As individuals, it's very clear what families we belong to when we only practice the social construct version of what families are. If we are practicing only the social construct aspect of families, we can go to all kinds of events, even with one another, but never have a conversation with one another. We can be in the presence of hundreds of people and still be all alone. These are all truths. The truth can hurt some people. The truth will set you free. It may not set other people free if they're holding on to the lies. Those are all of the things that I wanted to say today for this update. As far as everything that's going on in the world, I sympathize with all of it. Today I was reading the last half of A People's History of the United States, and I couldn't help but weep, break down crying over the atrocities that we have continued to perpetuate among one another, even in the smallest, minuscule ways. We have mistreated one another to such degrees that when someone speaks to you sternly, we think it's an argument. We have mistreated each other so much that once we believe there's any kind of a discomfort that could occur from having a relationship, well, it's time to move on to the next one. That didn't work out. We become so jaded over the course of life that we forget to do something good. I've been trying to do something good, and I keep returning to the same spot, even though I've tried all kinds of different variances. What has to change is the equation might need to have a few variables that are tweaked externally. I can't personally be known as any kind of a photographer who is credit worthy if my credits are covered up by an entity, for an example. I can hardly be known as someone who can write songs if I'm among people who are unable to hear music. I can definitely not be a son worthy of having been had if I'm not worth at least defending in the presence of someone who is belittling and or attacking me. The good thing is I am a big and strong person and I can defend myself. The other good thing is mentally I have the fortitude to withstand all of the adversity that I've been withstanding so far. The only bad thing is, what are you guys going to do during these upcoming ritualistic holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's? Is your family going to be present? God, I hope so. The way time is going and the way things are going in the world, we should just be lucky that we know that we're here together today. And we should be able to discuss things as if we might not be here except for today. If we woke up today and are able to give thanks for one another, how do we show that? Do we show that in a desperate way where it's like, let me get you this gift? Do we show that in a desperate way where it's like, let me get you this money? Do we do this in a desperate way where let me handwrite you a letter or compose a song with actual thought behind it? Is that a desperate way? Depends on how the presenter and or participant of the other side of the perspective sees such an act. Some people might only have ever been taught panic and adversity and servitude. And for those reasons, all I can do is forgive people who I think don't know what the heck they're doing when they try to merge across solid lines, or when they try to slow down to control you without recognizing the backup that they're causing. There are people out there who, in the midst of wanting for themselves to succeed, would push you underwater so that they can get every breath of life. There are people who will do that. To those people, all I've got to say is, again, it's like in the song that I shared today. It basically talks about, if I hadn't moved, I'd surely be dead. The devil got angry and struck at my head. If I hadn't moved, I'd surely be dead. The more that I remain firm and vigilant in this place, in my home, which is frankly wherever I am, the more the devil gets on, moving to their own pace, usually away from whatever source of potential encounters they might have with, I guess, the opposite of the devil. These are the kind of things that I talk about on this channel. So if you're watching this channel and it sounds serious and you're like, I don't know if I want to watch a serious channel like that. Well, there's a lot of lighthearted stuff in here too. There's a lot of nature, there's a lot of music, there's a lot of meaning, and there are a lot of deep thoughts. And so for that reason, I would encourage you, for that reason alone, I would encourage you, please subscribe. I've been trying to build a revenue stream that was basically just as easy as what you're doing right now. If you're viewing this, well, they're already adding viewership advertisement to my feed. If you watch enough of these videos, you'll see advertisement is happening on my channel. I'm not monetized. I don't get a cut of that. I need 1,000 subscribers to do that. In the past, I needed just 100 subscribers. When I got to 100 subscribers, the bar was raised. If I get to 1,000 subscribers, the bar might be raised. In all cases, who cares about the bar? We've got outdoors to enjoy right now. Why are we spending all this time drinking and arguing about something that doesn't really matter? Why can't we just listen to the conversation without arguing it to a way where our ego will be pacified? Those are my questions. So you can try and turn the camera and say, well, you're describing yourself. In a lot of ways I am. If you had for 45 years tried all of these different variations, even including taking an abusive person on an isolated vacation, feeding them mostly the food that you allowed them to eat so that they could get mentally sound, getting them to the point where they actually would do the dishes with you so that the entire house wasn't in disarray because that person was essentially not really working on caring for anything around them. If you can get that person to where they almost care for themselves, you should see the joy that occurs. My dad broke free temporarily. He was giving thanks for everything. He understood the conversational flow. He did not interrupt people that he disregarded. I'm just a nobody. I just happen to be a nobody among my, whatever you would call friends and family. If that wasn't true, I would have already had the support that I needed. And you know that. In this society, at this time, hundreds of years after the supposed whatever happened way back when, we're still doing the same thing. Politicians are robbing their own families of property. That happened to me. Politicians are holding on to money that should go to the people, the taxpayers, so that they can actually do something productive. I haven't gotten my income tax refund. We have not, in this household, received our income tax refund. And all along the while, the people who are supposed to be giving you that representation, where's the representation? When I went to the campgrounds at Big Bend and there was no representation in terms of turning away the crowds so that the bears could just sit in the shade, as emaciated as they were, as hungry as they were, as thirsty as they were, where were the people that were helping to resolve anything? There are no authorities in this landscape anymore. Where are the men or women who are running the show? If it took someone like me, whose name is being covered up in the actual place where I got the campgrounds to shut down for a while, do you think the government is happy with me? Do you think maybe that's why certain weird anomalies happen? Do you think that's why family is okay stealing from the only child, from the person to whom things were rightfully left? Do you think that's why the Native Americans had so many buildings on this continent before the settlers arrived, and then suddenly those weren't taught about in history? We may never know. But if only we stopped and talked with one another for just long enough, we might at least consider that we didn't know to begin with, and we might learn something new. So, until next time, again, this is just a random update. This won't happen regularly. This only happened because I absolutely manifested something by laser focusing on it. And you can too. The only thing is you have to be prepared to put in the work to get what you really want, if you really want it. For me, I really wouldn't mind if my dad was able to have a full conversation with me, because I feel in the hierarchy of this world, without the approval of not even one of my fathers, I don't think I'll ever have a way to monetize what it is that I'm bringing to anyone in this world. It's just my thoughts. I think they're worth more than 2 cents. If you want to click on the description and contribute your 2 cents, I'd appreciate it. In the meanwhile, thanks so much for checking back up on me. Everything's okay. I've been succeeding at everything that I'm attempting to do. I have a lot more time because people have really stayed their distance for the most part, especially when they finally understood I was asking for time to do these things. And now we're getting down to the point where the only thing I know how to do is just like in my former IT position where I was highly paid. Only thing I know how to do that I know remaining, the only thing that's remaining that I know how to do effectively, which really produced results, is to go up the chain, copy up the chain. If one person's not reacting to you or responding to you, and they need to, let's say that there's a work holdup, and this person is not producing the work that they need to produce for everyone to succeed, I might talk directly across the chain to one of their peers who they regard, or even maybe someone above them in terms of what the hierarchy would suggest would be given cause for regard. In some cases, you need a political elected official. In some cases, you need a higher ranking family member. But in many cases, none of us are really the judge anyway. So I just leave it to the will of the highest power, and I defer to the fact that we're always being under observed mutual conversation. It's really all the way, that's the only way that you can really live a true self, is to be yourself. If you can only be yourself in front of one person, but you can't talk to another friend about this person that you talk with because they might be an embarrassment to this other person, you might be doing something really shady by hanging out with this person who you can't even talk about, or maybe you're doing something really shady by hanging out with this other person who can't accept conversations about this person, if that was what you wanted to talk about. Just my thoughts. If you were offended, feel free to say so in the comments. If you're nourished, please, I'm absolutely grateful that I was able to nourish you in your time of need. I know what it's like to be abandoned. I understand to the point where I wrote a song called Trash Can Baby, and I felt it in my heart, the complete and utter discarding of me. You know, I know that I wasn't discarded. I thankfully had, in many instances, someone who cared. And at the same time, if I know those feelings, imagine what somebody else who went through those feelings would feel like. Maybe my own father feels like that. I don't know. We can't have a conversation that's comfortable around that without the missing ingredient, which might be, right? I've been there. Don't point at me. If you're going to point at me, that means you want to include yourself. Let's get together in a way where we can actually have meaningful conversations. Till next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.